Hello there. This is Jenny, your host at the Path to Better A1C podcast. And today I am going to talk about a topic that a lot of people ask me during clarity calls, during my coaching sessions, and it's something that might surprise you a little bit because there are other things that you need to consider when it comes to labs and finding out what is happening with your blood sugar. And we are going to cover everything so that you can have all of the information that you need to go talk to your doctor, know exactly what labs to go for and look at. Even if you're not diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, there are certain trends that you should be looking out for. And that is what we're going to do today. Now, if you don't know me, I am Jenny Pena. I am a national board certified health and wellness coach, diabetes prevention program lifestyle coach, and founder of Gen P Coaching. And I created also my 12-week one-on-one program called the A1C Reset Protocol, specifically designed for those that are having some insulin resistance, want to lower their A1C, prevent type 2 diabetes, and maybe lose a few pounds, right? So that you can regain that energy and ditch that brain fog that is always associated with blood sugar. Now, here is something that might surprise you. By the time someone gets diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, the metabolic dysfunction, it has probably been brewing for 5, sometimes 10, even 15 years. So that's why in the past you would see that a lot of people would get diagnosed when they're in their 40s, maybe late 30s as the early thing. But that means that it's been brewing for years before. So you don't wake up one day and, oh, I have type 2 diabetes now. It's something that is quiet, that is in the background, nothing very dramatic. Initially, even with prediabetes, a lot of people are like, I have no symptoms. I don't feel anything different. And the wild part is that most of the labs that probably could have give you that sign, either your doctor isn't ordering them, not because they're bad doctors, right? It's just not how the standard screening is. And others is just because if it is within range, everything is okay. But I will say that looking at the trends, if let's say your A1C is normal, but it tends to elevate every year that you check, that should be something to look into. Not to overly worry about, but something to look into. Maybe you suspect blood sugar might be off. Maybe diabetes runs in your family. It can just be for somebody that just wants to know where they actually stand metabolically. Now, let's talk about your doctor probably is already running. This is something, at least in the US where I am, most doctors, they do this in your annual physical exam. And the first is the A1C. This is the one that is like the gold standard for measuring your average blood sugar. And what this test actually measures is how the sugar is attaching to the red blood cells over the past 2, 3 months. That's why, if you have it elevated, in order for you to retest it, and that's why my program is actually 12 weeks, is because it's within that period that you may be able to see that number change. It takes about 3 months for you to see any change if you have incorporated different habits. Your red blood cells live about 90 to 120 days, and that is what gives you that average of your blood sugar. It's a useful number. And conventionally, and I'm going to say conventionally because other countries may have different ranges, under 5.7% is considered normal in the US. Between 5.7% and 6.4, it is considered pre-diabetic range. That's when you really need to work on your habits to either delay the development of type 2 diabetes or fully prevent and get that reversed. And then if it is above 6.5, it is considered a diabetic range. Now, I'll just say a lot of folks on the functional space like to see it under 5.4 and even 5.2. Just something to think about. Now, the second standard test is the fasting glucose, right? We talked about A1C. Fasting glucose. That's another one that is fairly common, at least here in the US. It's simple. You're supposed to fast for about 8 to 12 hours. They draw blood, they measure the blood sugar floating in your bloodstream at that moment in time. It's not an average, it's not showing anything historical. It should be under 100 milligrams. If you get a reading from 100 to 125, that creates a flag for possible prediabetes. And then if it is over 126, it creates that flag for type 2 diabetes. Now, these two labs are fine. Both of these numbers can look completely and perfectly normal while your body is working incredibly hard behind the scenes. How is that possible, you may say? Well, that's because the pancreas can pump out massive amounts of insulin, more and more every year, just to keep your glucose in the normal range. So, on paper, your labs are going to look great initially. Your doctor will say you're fine, see you next year. But under the hood, your metabolism is compensating and compensating hard. And that compensation has a shelf life. And that's why it takes years of your body compensating to then develop that insulin resistance. And then you start seeing things getting a little bit out. Now, the one lab that I believe doctors typically don't rely on and is very important is the fasting insulin. This, in my opinion, is the single most understood lab test in conventional medicine, right? Quick physiology, so we're on the same page. Now, fasting insulin. Let's talk about physiology. When you eat carbs, and to a lesser extent protein, your blood sugar goes up. Your pancreas responds by releasing insulin, which is the hormone that tells your cells, "Hey, open up, let the sugar go in, and let's use it for energy." That's the insulin's job. It's the key that will unlock the cell. Now, insulin resistance is what happens when your cells kind of stops responding to that key the way that they used to. The lock gets rusty or it just ignores the insulin. So what does the pancreas do? Well, it makes more keys. It creates more insulin to get the job done. And for a long time, years, maybe a decade, the strategy works. Your glucose stays normal, your A1C stays normal, but your insulin is climbing higher and higher in the background. Now, that is what fasting insulin measures. It measures how hard the pancreas is working when you haven't eaten. And it will start rising 5, 10, sometimes 15 years before your glucose budges even a little bit. Something to think about. And it may be even the earliest warning shot you can get in a standard blood draw that something is off. Now, this is not part of the standard testing. You have to ask. Now, why doesn't your doctor order it? A few people have asked, like, why is it that they don't include it if it is so important? And honestly, there are a few reasons. It's not part of the metabolic standard panel that they run in your physical. And depending on your insurance, it may not be covered the same way unless there is already a diagnosis. So there is that catch. Um, it hasn't been emphasized as the most conventional medicine training as a training tool. So again, there are other things happening that may influence why your doctor will not order it, why your insurance will not cover it. So I will say talk to your doctor, check with your insurance to see if it's covered. And if you're able to do it, run it and talk to your doctor about it. And here's what I want you to walk away. You can ask by name. You can say, okay, I'm curious. I want to know what my fasting insulin is. And that's it. Most doctors will not question it. And you can share why you are curious about it. And another caveat and a quick bonus that I'm going to share, it's that if you get both your fasting glucose and your fasting insulin at the same time with the same blood draw, There's a calculation. It's called HOMA IR, which combines the two and gives you a single number that estimates how insulin resistant you are. You can plug it in a free online calculator. I will put that one in the show notes. And generally, you want that number under one for optimal metabolic health. Above two, something for you to talk to your doctor about. Okay. Now, there's another element, the lipid connection. Then let's shift gears because a lot of people don't realize that lipids are highly connected when you're having blood sugar imbalance. And while you're already getting blood drawn, there's another piece of the puzzle that at times gets missed, and that is your cholesterol panel. But this is important, not in the most not in the way most people think about cholesterol. Most of us were raised on this idea that high cholesterol is bad, low cholesterol is good, end of the story. And that is a huge oversimplification. What I want you to pay attention to, especially in the context of blood sugar and insulin resistance, are two numbers on that lipid panel: triglycerides and HDL. Triglycerides are basically the form that fat takes in your bloodstream. When you eat more carbohydrates than your body needs right in the moment, especially those refined carbs and added sugars, your liver converts that excess into triglycerides and ships them out. So, elevated triglycerides are functionally one of the body's ways of telling you, hey, I'm getting more sugar than I should, and I don't know what to do with it. Pretty much. And it's a carbohydrate story that way more than it's a fat story. So that's why people, when they're having insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity, they're having elevated blood sugars, now their lipid panels are starting to tilt towards ranges that are not ideal. Now, HDL is what people call the good cholesterol. I don't love that framing much, but the reason why HDL matters for this conversion is that it tends to drop when insulin resistance is developing. So you see this classic pattern in someone heading towards type 2 diabetes. Triglycerides starts climbing, HDL starts drifting down. And then the pattern often shows up before even the fasting glucose and the A1C levels. That's why it is important for you to look at these things, talk to your doctor, see trends, see if anything is tilting in a certain way, and then start taking action early. There's a simple marker I want you to know about. It's called the triglycerides to HDL ratio. You take your triglyceride number divided by your HDL number, and that's it. Generally speaking, you want that ratio to be under 2. Under 1.5, even better. When that number starts climbing up towards 3, 4, 5, that's your body waving a flag. So when your next lipid panel comes back, don't just glance at total cholesterol. Look at the triglycerides, look at the HDL, do the ratio. You'll learn more about your metabolic health from that one number than from your total cholesterol itself. If you have access to your lab, do the exercise. Most likely you have those results already. But here's what it gets interesting, and we're going to dig a little bit further next week, is that those labs that you walk through, they tell you what is happening. And you do want to go into the root cause. You do want to find out what is really happening. So next week, we're going to go into functional labs, and we're going to talk about the hair tissue mineral analysis. It's called HTMA for short. And that looks at minerals sitting in your tissues, not just the ones circulating in your blood. And that matters a lot for blood sugar because minerals like magnesium and chromium are massive players in how your cells respond to insulin. So if you're deficient in either one, and a lot of people are, your insulin sensitivity takes a hit. We're also going to talk about also continuous glucose monitors in the future. I am preparing an episode on that because it is something that, while sadly it's not covered by insurance when you're a pre-diabetic And it's only covered by insurance, at least at the time that I'm recording this, when you're having type 2 diabetes and you are on insulin. If you're not, you may need to go out of pocket. Some doctors may give you a sample of it, but I believe that it gives you amazing data and it will help you understand how your glucose moves throughout the day live. You're going to see exactly the types of foods that spike your blood sugar, the types of foods that keep your blood sugar steady, and it comes very, very helpful. And another thing that some people will not talk much about, it's about the organic acid test. It's a urine test that gives you a window into how your mitochondria is actually producing energy. There are comprehensive stool testings like the GI map because gut health and blood sugar regulation are way more connected than most people realize. So a lot of these things play a part and they're not typically part of your regular testing protocol. Another one is your cortisol rhythm because guess what? Chronic stress will absolutely wreck your blood sugar no matter how clean your diet is. Blood sugar dysregulation is almost never just about sugar. It's about minerals, it's about the gut, it's about stress, it's about your mitochondria, all those pieces. And the functional labs we're going to talk about next week and a little bit about gut health. We're going to be able to dig into that and get a lot more knowledge on it. Now, here's your homework for this week. I know, I'm giving you homework. If you haven't had these basic labs done in the last 12 months, put it in your calendar, schedule an appointment with your doctor, and ask for fasting insulin. And if you have had them done recently, go pull them up right now. Look at those numbers, not just whether they say in range, but look at the trends. See if you identify any trends that may indicate that something is slowly brewing. And one more thing, nothing you heard today is medical advice. This is for you to have information and go talk to your doctor, right? Don't think that, oh my God, my A1C was elevated. I already have a pre-diabetes. Talk to your doctor, right? Don't self diagnose, but be educated. Be in tune with your body and how you feel. Understand the information that you're being given. And then you can really go to your doctor and create a plan that works for you. Now, next week, we're going to have a special guest. It's going to talk a little bit about functional labs. It's going to talk about gut health and how it connects to blood sugar. And it's going to be an amazing episode. So if you are not subscribed, subscribe. If you found this helpful, share a review. It will help more people get awareness around blood sugar, prediabetes, and diabetes, and have an amazing rest of your week. Until the next one, bye.